I think Ron was. No, Ron would have been my first one. He was Juniper, yeah?
He is Juniper now. I don't know if he's always Juniper.
I want to say he was then. But IETF 75 was my first one, so it had to be Ron. I feel like such a baby when I say that here. I met, what's his face? Michael St. John's, who's been in every single IETF ever. I started in 75. I'm a baby compared to these folks. It's good fun. But yeah, you've always been super approachable and amazing at it.
Warren.
When did I start participating?
Actually, my presentation have a friend. Yeah. He would be the first one.
You started 99 as our AD. Yeah, because I had Ron and Joel and there we go. That's a long journey. 2017. I feel like I'm going to invite everybody to come sit at the front of the room and nobody's going to know. And we just kept it
Can
from
start.
that to all of this access change and then put it in this. Because you go through those changes and then you AD. It's not the same people.
IED doesn't do it.
Just saying, if you do it, I feel just respecting the same way. But I'm also emotionally tied to my AD.
Warren, will you introduce Matt today or not? You will
He's
do.
not, he unfortunately has to be a MOPS, and so he's not going to be
So
here. So I was
you
going
will
to
do.
introduce him, but unfortunately he's not.
So you don't need to do. Okay. Just for confirmation.
But I did want to say this working group has been one of my favorites because it's just so calm.
Because of the chairs.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, we're late.
Let's start. Yeah, let's start. I started to share the slides.
Mhm.
You can, I don't know, do you want to connect to Mythical?
No, I'll
Yeah.
just with you.
Yeah. Let's start. We are already 3 minutes late. I don't know. This is BMWG. If you are interested to BMWG, you are in the right room, right?
So, if you aren't. Welcome, y'all.
Yeah.
Hey, I am Sarah Banks. I haven't seen some of you guys before. I've been sort of remote for a couple of meetings at this point. So hello, if I haven't met you. With me is my co-chair, Giuseppe. We have a interim page that honestly nobody, oh, excuse me, this isn't the interim page. Pardon me. If you aren't subscribed to the BMWG mailing list, but you would like to be subscribed to the BMWG mailing list, and you do, because we don't technically sign off on anything in the room. We'll take hums, we'll take consensus, but generally speaking, we send things to the list to get approvals and feedback and what have you. So you need to be signed up on the list if you want to participate in BMWG, and you can do that at that link below. Here's our fantastic note. Well, read it. It's the same in every working group. There are no bait and switches in here. Generally speaking, we are the kind and gentle side of the IETF is what our older co-chair used to say, and it's one that I'm reminded has been true of BMWG since I joined. Very young, I know, but many years ago. So please take a look. Let's continue that kindness in this working group, please. Just in case there wasn't enough on the last slide in really small font, we have more. Like, go ahead and read this one too. Basically, it's covering things like, be a good person, don't harass folks, be gentle, again, be kind. Lots of legalese for you to read here. I will point out, sorry though, if you do feel like you are being harassed, the ombudsman process here is pretty good. I would encourage you to figure out who the ombudsman is. If you don't know who they are, feel free to reach out to one of us. We'll find them in the corridor and connect you to them if you need. You can also drop them an email and have them meet you at a certain spot. They'll do that as well. All right, so if you are in person outside, there is a scan the QR code. Please do that. If you want to, or you can sign in through Data Tracker, that's fine as well. If you want to use the Meet Echo, you can do one of two things. You can join the queue in there, or you're in the room. You can also join here at the microphone stand. The one thing that we ask for note taking is you say your name and your company affiliation slowly so that the rest of us can capture what you're saying. Otherwise, mute yourself if you are remotely joining as well, please.
We also need the note taker. Any volunteer? Thank you.
Paolo has volunteered to take notes. Thank you, sir. All right, we have a packed agenda. We usually do this in 3 sections, 2 for sure. So we go through the working group drafts. These are drafts that are already have been adopted by the working group and we're working our way through the process. The second group that we do are proposals, which are really new and cool ideas that folks are thinking about and would like to become a working group draft. So we go through those next. And then sometimes, because of what we do with benchmarking, we get folks who are like, I tested this in the lab. Let me share my results. Awesome, bring it on. Like, those are the fun parts of BMWG for sure. So we'll get presentations. It looks like we don't have any today. And then we have a catch-all for any other business or AOB there. So this is the agenda as planned. Are there any changes that we need to make?
Yeah, the only change you remember, Chin asked to present before the others because he has a conflict, and Libin asked to present at the end. So,
all right.
For some presentation conflicts.
And then we have our current AD has raised his hand.
I just quickly wanted to thank everybody for having made BMWG such a great working group, especially the chairs. It's always been one of my favorite, and there's been no drama, and everybody always works together really well. So just thank you everyone for making this a good working group.
Okay, wait. Could we please just get a small round of applause for Warren, because we've had a fantastic go with him as AD, and you can't ask for better. So I do want to publicly embarrass him now and give him a hand, please.
Thank you, but I really had to do basically zero work for this working group. So thank you.
Again, we are the kind and gentle side of IETF. Yes. All right.
All right.
So please, we're going to have Lieben go first, yeah? Oh, sorry,
The
status, pardon me. It's been a minute since I've done the slides in person, y'all, sorry. All right, so we have one draft in for publication. I think that's the one I'm the document shepherd on, actually. MLRS. Things are progressing well. Thank you, folks. There's a couple of things going in for working group last call. Making sure that we're reading through and providing feedback as we're going is really, really important to moving things along through the process. So please do. There are 2 drafts up for current adoption in the working group. The power and networking devices has been kicking around for a bit, so I would encourage any newcomers to read that one as well. It's a pretty good one, as well as source address validation. And then we have 3 proposals on deck. SRv6 service. Oh, did I see this one? Sorry. SRv6 service benchmarking guideline. Yeah, I must have missed that one. I apologize. I will read that, authors. Thank you. Recommendations for using multiple IP addresses in benchmarking tests. Ooh, that'll be fun. and calibrated of measured time values between network elements. So these are three new proposals coming in the door. And again, when you bring a proposal in, we ask everybody to read it because that feedback allows us to understand, look, is this something as a working group we want to work on and then eventually publish as an RFC? So the way we move things forward is when it's done for you, you do it for others or vice versa, as the case may be. So please, feedback, review the docs and provide feedback on list. That's very helpful. And it goes without saying, test results reign supreme. Some of the best BMWG sessions we've ever had are the ones where somebody's like, let me show you what we had in the lab. Good fun. So feel free to bring test results in any time. We'll always find time on the agenda to do that. And again, I'll leave that last bullet there. We talked about reviewers being needed. It's how the IETF works. Thank you. 9693 is the first RFC we published in 2025. Woohoo. Our charter is pretty stable. It usually is pretty stable, by the way, but just saying we are stable. We have a supplementary page at bmwg.encrypted.net. I don't think I've touched that in a minute, but if there's anything that somebody would like to see there, sources they want to share, sometimes in the past what I've seen is, hey, what test tools are you using, or what open source test tools are you using? And there'll be a call for that, and I'll put that information on the page. So in any event, it's an example. It doesn't have to be only about test tools, but if there's something that you would like to see or have answered, please let me know and I can drop it on that page. And then milestones in terms of updatings. You see the one that's, ooh.
No, sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, sorry.
You see the one that's already updated. The next one, the January 2025, seeing the MLRS going into IESG review. I think that was on track, actually. And then March 2025 at the last one here. So right now we are actually progressing pretty well. Again, pretty typical for BMWG. We do not usually have 15 documents going on in any given time in every state. So easy peasy.
Okay, let's start, right?
Yes.
With the first presentation. Chin, you can come. Yeah, we usually start with working group documents, but this is just an exception because Chin has some overlapping presentations. So,
morning. My name is Qin. Thanks, Chair generosity to move my topic up front because I have another presentation in MOPS. So the topic I want to introduce is a quick update about what we have done for the power benchmark. Since last IETF meeting. Next. So a little bit of background recap. Power measurement is not a new thing. Actually, you probably know, to measure how much power can be consumed by network device, IoT device, server in the data center network, smart building, smart campus, has already been supported 15 years ago, probably. And but the power, with the growth of the network size and the traffic volume of various different network services, the power that can be consumed by the network device, are increased a lot. So to improving the network utilization, it become extremely important. So energy efficiency, observability become the technology trend, and also it's an important metric to measure the overall network utilization. But we need to look for the balance between the network throughput and energy consumption. So we really, on the other hand, actually, benchmark methodology is a very important tool to help vendor to test the energy efficiency of their device. We can test from two different angles. The first is we can, measure the overall network performance. For example, you deploy 10 or 100 network device, you need to measure overall network performance, and also you need to compare network performance of various different model of the device, or using various different vendors' devices. So, secondly, actually, you may have an end-to-end network. You can break down the end-to-end network into for example, RAN network, or transport network, and core network. You want to measure portion of the network performance, for example, transport network performance. So in this chart, we can support these two test scenarios. So the focus of this chart really we want to measure and compare the energy efficiency for each individual device. Next. So document history, actually, this has been presented for many times, actually really motivated by the IB Environment Impact Workshop, and also recently we have the Green Working to be great, and we has go through 3 IETF meeting and to be presented in the benchmarking working group, and we recently in Dublin meeting we have Roman Jacob actually as one of the co-authors to present the latest update we made actually based on our test results, and so we received a good feedback from Gabor and also Luis, and so we want to discuss the change we made. Next. So the big change we made is we add a new section to talk about replicability and comparability. So replicability means you can always get achieve the same test results with newly connected data, and but sometimes you may face challenges because you need to look into the various different test environment setting and test parameter, and make, for example, room temperature to make sure all the test parameter meet your requirements or criteria. So this make a benchmarking tester even challenging. So we argue actually we can focus on key parameter, key test environment setting, and this make benchmarking test the result can be repeatable actually, and can be easy to to be done actually. So second change actually we adopt explicit traces to connect all the new data, because we really want to achieve same test results based on new connected data. And the third change is we support snag testing, because really this is the simplest way to scale the number of the pods involved the test, because you have a network device you cannot guarantee each port of the network device will support traffic generation. So using the snag test will make benchmark test per port much easier. So that's why we argue you use this snag testing as the simplest way. And in addition, the last note than this, actually we redefine the low active state of the router, and we introduce 3 modes. The basic mode is the power, the state where the power join after factory reset without the transceiver plugin. And we also support 2 other mode, idle and idle plus. The key difference is idle means measure you can measure the network device power consumption, but you make assumption all the device will all the interface will be up, but we will not consider any traffic, and but the idle plus means you need to measure with minimal traffic volume, and so that's the current change we made. And next, this draft has been around a while. Actually, we think pretty much stable could be the good basis based on our test results and test experience, and we want to ask working group to consider to adoption this draft. Also, we welcome additional comments input for this draft. And recently on the mailing list, we get some discussion with Diego, who is one of the Green Working Group chair. Actually, we think for benchmarking working group could be the building block, but we need to better align with the Green Working Group, because they focus on not just data model but also metric definition. So this is something we we hope we can better consistent with what a Green Working Group is doing, and after this can get adopted. Yeah, that's all. Thanks. Any comments?
Can we go back one slide?
Which slide?
Go back one. I have a question. Base is where you measure power at factory reset with no transceivers, whereas idle is when all the interfaces are up and no traffic. There's, I think, an in-between state where a lot of routers might be, which is when, or a lot of devices might be, where they have the interfaces plugged in and no interfaces are up and no traffic is being drawn. And so wondering if you can share what the thought process was for defining base this way versus with transceivers plugged in and no interfaces up yet. Was there a thought or a conversation you had as authors there?
Yeah, I think Roman, kick off some discussion on the list, but I'm not sure they cover this, the change we made. Actually, I think this is really based on their, test environment. They, gave this kind of basis. I think maybe this basis need to be tweaked actually based on, maybe not a, they have an implementation, but we can, see whether we need to consider other implementations, so make sure the basis is more generic to cover all the scenarios. Yeah.
And are these conversations happening as well on the green working group list as well, or only on BMWG?
We start to discuss with, one of chair of green working group, but we haven't touched these pieces. I think we should discuss this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen.
Okay, so thank you for your great work.
Hang on. What's your name? And
yeah, Genchen from Huawei. Yeah. So here I have a small question. Actually, you named the metric idle plus, and in the draft it says that we should have the minimum traffic being transported through this port to get measured. So my question is that it said 1 PPS. Is there any strong proof to say that 1 PPS should be 1 PPS, or it's just an example for this? Because it's very important for different equipment. Maybe it's different with this minimum throughput.
I hope this should be the example, not put a restricted requirements, only limit to the 1 packet per second.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
well, but even in a lab environment, a lot of just what happens on the control plane would probably exceed 1 PPS out of the box for most devices. So on one hand, in BMWG, we would say 1 PPS because we have to, in this example, because it's the test case I would need to conform to so that I have repeatability.
Yes.
What I'm saying, though, or what I would build on to his point, is in a lot of devices, it's probably a little higher than that out of the box, just because of how the operating systems on those boxes work anyways.
Yeah.
And so again, it begs the why 1 PPS versus is it meant to be a low, which I suspect is why you guys picked 1 PPS.
Yeah.
So again, we can ask this on the list. It was just, yeah, it struck me a little odd as a choice as well.
Yeah, good suggestion. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's continue the discussion on the list, and let's move to the usual agenda. So we will start with the working group document, in particular the multiple loss ratio search. This draft is already past the working group last call, and we are now in the process to review it and move to the ISG for publication. I'm serving as shepherd of this document, so I guess that Maciek will discuss the latest changes after the working group last call and the write-up. So please, Maciek, go ahead.
Thank you, Giuseppe, and hello, everyone. Sorry for a bit of the hoarse voice. Next slide, please. Okay, so we published version 09 on the 25th of February. The focus was to address the workgroup last call comments, specifically many comments from Gabor and a few from Edward. We summarized them in an email, so that's version 9. Subsequently, we published yesterday version 10, focusing on mainly edits for IDNets and added the requirements language. There's an error on the slide, so we of course want to progress towards publishing as the last goal has been done. Next slide. Yes, so there is an addition of the text in the in the managerial section 3.3. So that's addressing Edward's comments, specifically focusing on the default configuration and distinguishing from things like the changes to optimize buffers for, say, jumbo frames during the tests are not allowed. So that's just one example on that basically enforcing the testing procedure without any changes in the device configuration. Next slide. Yeah, some of the clarifications that was for Gabor. Some of the definitions are done and they have had dependencies on other definitions. So we improved those cross-references to simplify the text and also to make it clearer. Next slide. That was, again, for address Gabor's concerns. We clarified the use of the aggregate rates, whether per port or per multiple ports, and confirmed that indeed the aggregate values across multiple ports are also supported. Next slide.
The second note.
Yeah, there was some discussion with Gabor about the conditional throughput and goodput. We made clear that we wanted to separate it out, and we made some references to the goodput. We didn't want to go into the discussion on what is acceptable loss ratio or not, and there are a few references there, including some of the work that Gabor referred to. Next slide. Yeah, so there are a few, in fact, quite a few minor edits. Again, for Gabor, clarifying things like hard limits, which is quite often related to the PPS limit on the NIC, and such, and also clarification on the language for learning frames and why Mac learning is different than ARP. And next slide. And that's the final one. Gabor was calling for a separate document or reference to an implementation and heuristics. So we added the reference, and we also created, in fact, expanded an existing open source Linux Foundation FDAO assisted documentation page that covers those aspects, and not all of those sections are completed today, or some of them are light, but we're looking to complete that later. But there is a reference in the document as requested by Gabor, and we agreed. Next slide. Yeah, and that should be really progressing to publication. So. Next slide. Yep. So that's pretty much the updates. Many thanks to everybody and the chairs who have reviewed and helped us improve the documents. It was a pleasure working with the team, and we're looking forward to the publication.
Okay, good. Any remarks, questions, comments?
I would say thank you to the authors as well. I think this is one of it wasn't controversial magic, but the amount of feedback and editing that you guys did was one of the heavier ones we've had in a while, and you guys were on top of it. So thank you for that. It's been a long time coming, and provided everything goes well, it'll be really nice to see this published as an RFC. So thanks for all your efforts.
Yeah, indeed, it's been a while. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I also want to thank you because I have read the draft as chair, but also as a shepherd, so it's a very good document. And in this regard, I only have a question. as a shepherd. In the last 0.10, in the 10 version, did you address all the ID needs comment? But I didn't check, but I noticed that you published just yesterday the version.
Yes.
So did you address all the remaining needs, right?
That's right.
Okay, that's very good. So I think after the meeting we can easily progress, because there were the only remaining needs to fix before moving forward. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for being with us this early in the morning as well. We appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Chairs.
Thank you, Maciek. Thank you. Now we are supposed to have Vladimir. We received the slide.
Vladimir posted on the list that, I think, are you online, Vladimir? Yeah. He posted that there are no slides. The results from the hackathon aren't ready yet, and so he's going to use this session to Q&A anything, and he'll come back next time in person actually and provide an update.
That's good. Okay.
Did I paraphrase you correctly, Vladimir?
Yeah, it is correct.
Perfect. Has anybody read this draft besides the chairs? So it's really good to give it another read through for next time, especially if Vladimir is going to be here in person to answer questions. It's very helpful as we go through the process. I don't have questions personally at the time. Do you have any questions?
Just a refreshing for the group. It's the draft is on young data model. Maybe Vladimir, you can say some words to summarize it, to invite people to read. I personally read the draft and I think it's quite useful because to define the young data modeling for benchmarking, for the configuration of benchmarking test. And nowadays that we are moving towards the automation is something that is quite important. So I will leave the floor to Vladimir if you want to say something to invite people to read, but of course the draft is quite stable.
If you haven't been updated to this work, it's a young model for management of network tester, like the generator and the analyzer. It's divided in two models and modules, and we have implementation, and it is simple single stream that is useful for simple tests, but it's very deterministic and easy to implement. So it can be, the goal is that it can be a Swiss Army knife for benchmarking and universal management of testers. So it has a value, and it is a very simple topic that has been addressed in different ways throughout the ages. So different manufacturers have their different interface to doing that. So we have been working for quite a while on a young model to do that. It is deterministic. It's simplifying the interface abstraction by assuming that it's a simple data plane of octets where you have interframe gaps and packet data. And we're not putting any interface-specific semantics into that. But in the same way, you can use that for testing different interfaces. So that's a rough abstract of the work there. So we have been trying to actively find interested parties like instrument manufacturers and also implementers like FPGA and ASIC developers that have insight into what is doable and what is not. So that's how we try to find out adopters and people interested in that work. Yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, the best place to contact us is on the benchmark working group list. So if you have any kind of feedback, please do that.
Okay, I just want to add that as a base data model, of course, it can be augmented. So if you think about more complex tests, of course, as by definition of young data model, it can be augmented. And okay, so
Yes.
let's continue the discussion on the list. Thank you, Vladimir.
Okay. Have a nice session.
And see you next time in Madrid, Vladimir. In person. So next one will be Min Gong.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Mingok, and this is the update for the container benchmarking graph. So go to the next slide, please. So a quick reminder about the scope of the draft. So this document is addressed the gap of the previous IFC work about NFV benchmarking, and the gap of this work when applied to containerized NFV infrastructures. So this consideration is unique container network models and container resource configuration. Next slide, please. So the other update, the first update is that we make a modification to provide a clearer categorization of ePPF acceleration model. So in previous versions that we categorize them by whether the ePPF networking model is use AF-XDP or not. So there are three kinds. One is non-AF-XDP, where packets do not go to the AF-XDP port, and for the two kinds that go to AF-XDP, it is supported by the CNI or supported by the IETF supported vSwitch. It's not really quite clear, and in this one we differentiate them by divide them into forwarding via traffic control hook, ePPF, TC hook, and ePPF XDP hook. Next slide, please. So this is a detail. So on the left side is a previous version figure. So it's a non-AF-XDP when we state that the packet can go to either DC hook or XDP hook before going to the port. Actually, it's not an it's incorrect one because when the packets go to XDP hook, it will eventually go to the AF-XDP port at the user space. So for that, for this one, we modify the figures. So it will be only going to the ePPF traffic control hook. And the example is a calico with a default Cilium. When XDP support is not enabled for Cilium, the packet can only go to the DC hook and go to the port supported by the CNI. Next slide, please. So this one is the forward with the XDP hook. So on the right side is a new figure. We see that the packet will go to the XDP, eBPF XDP hook as the NIC driver before going to the XDP socket. And then from there, there will be different forwarding methods based on the CNIs. For example, on the left side, so the previous version, if it is a AF-XDP CNI plugin, then it will be supported by that CNI by going to the corresponding library of that CNI. Next slide, please. Or another method is that after going to the AF-XDP socket, it will be fetched by the support the vSwitch that support AF-XDP, for example, like OVS, DVTK, or VPP. And from the vSwitch to the port, it will go through the user space CNI interface. And for Cilium, if XDP enabled, then it will go from the XDP port to the Cilium CNI. Next slide, please. So the summary for that chain is that we make this new categorization to give a clearer comparison for the reader to understand. You can correctly categorize Cilium now. It's the default version of Cilium. The packet will go to the traffic control hook, and the XDP version, it will go to the XDP hook. And we already asked for review on the chains by the previous IFC authors, and she already agreed about that on the mailing list. You go next slide. And the final update is we make a major review and enhance the English grammar document, and we update the reference with the latest information. Next slide, please. And that's it. I think because of the document is now technical and format ready, and we would like to request last go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments?
Who here has read? Who in the room has read the draft? So, as the world as the world looks for alternatives to what's going on in the land of Broadcom, I would really strongly recommend, if you are interested at all, that this is a draft you want to read. eBPF is sort of where the industry is at right now. There's a lot of conversation about what we're doing with that, and getting more feedback on this will help as we move through working group last call. So please take a look and share your feedback on the list, and I will do so as well after this meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also notice some comment on the list. You had some from Mariam, right?
Yes, Mariam.
But she's not participating to the BMWG regularly. Maybe you can invite.
Just she participated before, but after she published her RFC, I think she moved to another.
Okay. And she always worked very closely with Al.
Okay.
And Al used to bring her feedback back in, which is why she probably hasn't. So yeah, we can encourage Mariam to join, but also sharing that in here or looping her in would help as well.
It's just to say that we have only one person that read draft, but there are other person that is not in this room, is not attending this meeting, but also read the draft. So
yeah. So then to that point, right, in order for us to move this through working group last call, we need to show support from the working group, which is, again, for all of you taking a look and sharing your feedback is really important. And then having Mariam join and do that actually would probably help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to Paolo.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Paolo Volpato away. I'm presenting on behalf of the co-authors of our draft. You see is version 03. So next slide, please. Just as a short reminder, it's a draft about defining a standard methodology to benchmark the packet forwarding capabilities of segment routing enabled network devices. As such, the draft extends the, I would say, the benchmarking capability defined in the older RFCs, for example, 2044, but also leverages on the benchmarking methods defined for benchmarking IPv6 capabilities, MPLS capabilities, and clearly on the segment routing architecture. One point we stressed a lot in the past, the draft covers both segment routing MPLS and segment routing v6, including also the ability of compressing the seeds. And well, we are at the beginning of the presentation, but let me thank everyone who provided very valuable feedback and discussions. So next slide, please. Now, short history. You remember the draft was adopted by BMWG after IETF 119. We produced a few versions. Probably I would say the most controversial was version 02 because we had to work on adding how to benchmark the compressed seed capability. We spent quite some time to work on that. But if you look at the diff between version 02 and 03, I would say version 03 was uploaded just to fix some minor edits just to clarify a few sentences. For example, the use of the terms control plane or routing protocols, just to be a bit more precise on that. I would say the edits we have done were pretty much editorial. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of status, I would say the draft is stable. So after the work done for the IETF 121, actually we have not received any further comments. I mean, just request to clarify the text, as I said, but nothing new in terms of adding capabilities or fixing the method for benchmarking the segment routing features of a network device. What is going on right now is that thanks to the chairs who cross-posted the draft to Spring and SRv6 ops. And we asked the support of the chair to do that because we think that the experts in those two working groups could probably add more considerations or raise more comments that could be of value for the draft. So presumably we will wait for the feedback from those two working groups, I guess, in the next few weeks, probably. If there are comments, we will produce a new version. Otherwise, I think that the draft is stable enough to go for the last goal. There is just one point I'd like to stress that was discussed quite a lot among the co-authors, the possibility to reference to public tests that used the methodology defined by the draft. We know that some tests are ongoing. We'd like to have some references. And as we repeat very often, we don't want to have the results of the test. We're not interested in that. We'd like to have some, let's say, reference. Okay, we have done the test and we follow the recommendations provided by the draft, and they work. So that's what we would like to take care of. If it is possible, if you're running tests, if you know that there are public activity that can be referenced, we'd be very happy to reference them into the draft. After that, I would say the draft is almost ready, apart from the feedback we think to receive from Spring and SRv6 ops. And I would say this is all. So thank you. Any questions?
So given that the authors and one of the co-chairs is an author, making sure that we get feedback from those two, or at least one of the working groups, even if it's just that, hey, no feedback, but we think this is good and it's good to go, would be very helpful. It's part of the doc shepherd process. I am pretty sure I will be your document shepherd.
Okay.
Hello.
Well, good to know.
So making sure we get that feedback would be helpful, because I think the vast majority of folks in this room are not involved in those two working groups.
Right.
So making sure we have technology reviews covered from those two would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing, that the draft will be presented this week in both Spring and SRv6 ops.
Perfect.
So this is just to solicit more feedback from folks there, because I also cross-post, we also cross-post the draft on that mailing list, but reviewers, we didn't get any review yet. So probably by presenting this week, we will get more reviews at least.
This is our expectation.
Yeah, our expectation. So
Bribe them.
Boris Hasanov, MWS. Just maybe one suggestion, and I can send it also to the list. Maybe consider SR policy testing as some kind of special sub-case for forwarding, because there are many possible input parameters like number of candidate paths, segment lists, etc. So maybe it would be good to to consider it like a bit like additionally. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I may answer, well, please share it with the list so we can think of that.
Yeah, just want to say that this is for single device benchmarking, so we can address the possibility to include several segments is already in the draft, but we can make it more explicit. There is another draft on SR service, on service benchmark that is a separate, because we prefer to keep it separate, because usually in benchmarking working group, we do single device benchmarking. So the only device under test. So the discussion about end-to-end service is much more complex, I think. So that's why we focus only on single device. But of course, we can address your point by explicitly mentioning the possibility to have more segments, in order to simulate an SR policy in this way.
If I may, I think Giuseppe is right, but the reason why I suggested to post it on the list is to have the opportunity to better understand your requirement. Because I think the draft should be, let's say, complete about that. But maybe there is something more we can think of. So if you post it on the list, we have the time.
Of course, please post on the list. That's the best way. And of course, if you can also put Spring in copy, it's also always good. So all people that are involved can read your comment and reply.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we have completed the working group documents, and we will move to the proposal. Luis, you will be the first one. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, because Chin already presented before. So the first proposal was about the energy efficiency benchmarking that we moved at the beginning of the session. Lubin asked to be at the end, and now we have Luis.
Wonderful, thank you. So hello everybody, this is Luis from Telefonica. I will present a second version of this draft, which is about calibration of measured times values between network elements. Next, please. So just as a reminder of the motivation of the draft, so basically the point here is that, well, the timestamps are being used for calculating different traffic engineering aspects, like topologies with low latency, and also it's being used in other kind of services like the deterministic services, or even in PC path computation. So the point here is, okay, network devices are incorporating these capabilities of having T1 or stamp measurements in hop by hop. But the point is that when performing tests in the lab, we realize that the measurements are not properly equivalent, let's call it in this way. So the aim of the document would be to propose a methodology for calibrating the measurements so that we can correct any kind of bias that could be produced by the hardware itself. So in such a way that once we calculate from the control plane the latency between the path, between the hops, and then compose the metric in the path, we somehow can be sure that we are considering the proper value. The document was already presented in IETF, in the last IETF, and I will provide basically some updates based on the discussions that we have in the past IETF meeting. Next, please. So just as a reminder as well, the measurement scenario, where we were proposing these two scenarios, let's say. First, the isolated network element, and then the hop by hop, the hop basically between two network elements. The idea would be to constitute a kind of baseline measurement scenario. So with a tester as a ground of truth, measuring what is the latency in a fiber spool of a given length, and then taking that same fiber spool and measuring every particular network element isolated, or taking the fiber spool and measuring the hop between two network elements. With that, the idea would be to basically, once we have the measurement, either in the isolated network element or between network elements, then compare with the baseline measurement, and from that point, identify what would be the bias in the measurement that the implementation of the network element imposed in the measurement of the T1 or stamp, time stamp. Next, please. So updates from regarding previous version, we added a new section 3.3 where we are confirming the need of describing and considering the types of ports or line cards. We have validated the fact that different kind of ports or different line cards or bitrate ports impose different measurements. So it's essential to, at the time of describing the methodology, also identify the kind of line card that we are using or the kind of port that we are using in terms of bitrate. Then a new section 3.4 for the discussion on the resolution of the results. So the point here is that probably we need to just to consider the proper decimals at the time of reporting the result, because once we use these values, for instance, if we take the value of how this is propagated in ISIS or OSPF for the calculation of the flex algo topology, essentially we are working with some resolution of the measurement. So it's not worth it to go in a finer granular resolution than the resolution that we will use with the protocols at the time of advertising this information. Basically, is that. So we need to add a criteria for rounding the values. It's not yet there, but yeah, we need to identify that criteria. Essentially, probably to use the same granularity that is used in the protocols that will advertise these measurements. Section 4 was added as well as a new section for covering the furthest discussions. Essentially, there were two main comments from the presentation in the last IETF. One comment that was done by Giuseppe was the consideration of hybrid methods, like in situ OIM. Here, at least the way in which I see the point is that probably is not adequate for calibrating the hop by hop. In situ OIM would be useful for the end-to-end, but not for the hop by hop. And the second comment was raised by Karsten about the usage of instrumentation instead of the physical fiber spool. Here the point is that, okay, of course this can be done, but impose some limitations because we would require to have, the institution that was testing, could be testing this, would require to have the same instrumentation supporting a large number of interfaces so that we ensure that we are using the same ground truth for the baseline measurement. And probably this is something limiting. So in other words, it would be ideal, but probably is limiting at the time of, in practical terms, perform the benchmarking. So apart from these three sections, we also corrected typos and added new references. And that's all. Next, please. So points to be addressed in future versions that were also identified in version 0.0, probably scalability aspects. So what is happening when we are running multiple sessions? Probably the impact here would not be impact at all, because probably we will run just one session per port, but this is something that we need to assess. Second point is the aspects regarding the load. So if we test, let's say with the port idle, or we add background traffic to understand if this could have some impact on the measurements. So we will try to validate this in the lab and report here back. The third point, possibility of considering asymmetric scenarios if there are different paths of fiber length. Probably this is a very corner case, but well, we will think on that and I'll probably come back to this. And finally, the extension of this approach to any network element. Clearly, the network element should support any kind of protocol for generating the measurements. So it's something to consider and understand if there will be network elements that could be, let's say, worthy to consider. For instance, now G-node bits are supporting T1, so maybe it could be a case of considering G-node bits and so, but this is out of the scope of IETF, so we will think about that and come back to this. And I think that this was the last slide, if I'm not wrong. Or maybe next steps, yeah, for sure, collect more feedback and check interest from the working group, complete the draft with the open points, and prepare a new version for the meeting in Madrid. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments? Tal?
Tal Mizrahi, Huawei. So first, Luis, thanks for putting this draft together. I think it's an interesting topic to work on in BMWG. One thing to notice is that usually network devices have different timestamping mechanisms. So for example, the timestamping mechanism used for TWAMP can be completely different than what is used for IOM. One of them might be implemented in hardware, one might be implemented in software. And there's obviously, for example, NTP or PTP have different timestamping mechanisms. So when you want to test one of these, it's not necessarily applicable to what you would get from a different protocol. And obviously, there's already some existing off-the-shelf equipment which does timestamping testing for PTP, for NTP. That's already something that exists. But I think it is interesting to do this, for example, for TWAMP, for stamp. So that's interesting to consider also. It's interesting to be very specific about the terminology here, accuracy versus precision. I think that mostly you're testing precision and not accuracy. Correct me if I'm wrong. You may want to take a look at RFC 8877 for the exact terminology with respect to timestamping.
Thank you so much, Tal. Yeah, very good comments. And yeah,
Thanks.
here is more about precision than accuracy. Yeah, correct. Thank you.
So I'd also add in addition, there are hardware solutions that you can put on the front or the back of any of the interfaces and get timestamps as well. So one of the things that might help for anybody addressing the draft is, why would I need this? When I come in to read this, I have any number of other options available to me today. What problem is this solving? So making sure that's crisp in the draft might help your readers as you go through.
Okay, I'll do for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Yeah, of course, we can continue the discussion on the list on that. I don't know if Libin is in the room, because he was supposed.
Was he the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We may have to take this to the list.
Maybe I can just spend a few minutes because Libin has an overlap. So he's presenting in Save Networking Group, and he's supposed to present at the end of the session, but we were so quick today, so we already reached the end of this meeting. I just want to, let's say, we can wait other 5 minutes. I just want to use this time to move back to the chair slides, because there were a couple of drafts that have not been presented today, and I want to solicit people to share feedback, especially on these two drafts on recommendations for using multiple IP addresses in benchmarking tests. So Gabor will present at the next IETF in Madrid. So yeah, I will invite you to read these drafts and provide comments. There is also another draft that is, let's say, related to the benchmarking methodology for segment routing that was presented before by Paolo, that is about the SRv6 service benchmarking guideline. So this draft aims to discuss the service benchmarking, so without focusing on a single device. As I said, it's a separate, totally separate perspective compared to the single device benchmarking. So it's up to the working group people to consider if it is valuable or not. Maybe it can also be generalized in some way, because it's applicable to any end-to-end service probably, but the authors only focus on those SRv6 service. Anyway, let's have a look at these new proposals. So to have some comments on the list. Just to mention a couple of drafts that have not been discussed today, but are active. Let's come back to the presentation from Lubin. Maybe I can just say some words. I can just go through the slides. Yeah, this draft is about the, I'm not author, of course, I'm just reading the scope of the draft. So the benchmarking framework for source address validation based on safe open playground. So there were some exchanges on the mailing list about this topic. Unfortunately, the authors are not in the room, and I will invite to go through the slides and to have a look and continue the discussion on the list on this draft. So unfortunately, we cannot wait. And in IETF, there are overlapping meetings. It can happen, and you can just go to the final slides. Yeah, regarding the next step, of course, the authors are seeking feedback and comments, and also collaborations if you are interested on this topic. It looks like there is also an open source, and it's always good. Anyway, let's have a look at the slides and continue the discussion on the list on this topic. I will talk with Lubin to explain what happens, and if you will not find us in the room. Anyway, we can close.
Yeah. Any other comments before we wrap up? Any other business? All right, please make sure you're signed in so the digital blue sheet is taken care of. Otherwise, we will not get a big room. If you've been with BMWG, you know that's happened. Also, for everybody and for the recording, we usually do take our full 2 hours. Today was super fast. Sometimes that happens in APAC time zone. So next time we will be happy to see you again in a 2-hour fully used slot. Yeah. Please review the drafts, feedback on the list. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the last meeting was 2 hours. I guess that it
we
was
always are.
Because, because there were, for the time zone, a couple of presentations did not happen, like the one from Gabor, and Vladimir also did not present.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Really fast. Sometimes
it's good. It's good.
Yep. I know.
Yeah.
Would you like to come up and present? We can use the
You
other
will present some topic?
Come on. We usually do. Yeah. That's what we were saying. Typically, we do take the 2 hours, and quite a bit. We kick 1 or 2 things out because we don't have enough time. So it's very ironic that this time we have plenty of time left over. Yeah.
If someone wants to present again, he was not happy about the presentation, he can do again.
Kidding.
Okay.
All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for running slides.
Okay. Yeah, probably.
Fast. Is this your backpack? Can you fit your Mac in that?
Oh, yeah. Put my Mac and a remarkable and some t-shirts and some shoes and
in that. You fit shoes in that.
Well,
oh, okay.
Slipper.
I see.
Moroccan. But yeah, actually it holds quite a lot. It's nice because it's really small and light, and so like normally I have a wheelie bag and then like my laptop bag probably, and so this folds up small and just like drops in my thing. So super like Osprey something or other. Only mentioning because like I spent a long time trying to find the bag. Yeah, bro.